This is way better than we thought. A national analyst is bullish on the Bengals defense improving for the 2025 season and getting back to where they need to be. We'll break down what he had to say and why this is exciting, especially since we'll be able to see them in action tonight in the first preseason game of the season. Welcome to the jungle. This is Isaac Coffman with Bengals Digest. So happy to see all you Bengals fans. It's an exciting time. We are in the first game of the preseason. We get to see all of the action going on right in front of us. If you want to be up to date with all the breaking news, if you want to be up to date with all Bengals Digest, you're in the right spot. Smash that subscribe. We are on our way to 3,000 subscribers. We know we can get there with your help. We appreciate each one of you. Let's see if we can do that before the first game of the season. We know we can make it happen. And again, thank you so much for joining in on the community and getting your voice heard, because we want to hear what you think of this Bengals team going into the season. Well, the defense, it's going to be the topic of discussion. We're going to hear about it until we're blue in the face. We already are at this point, but because of last year, we saw what happened. Even with Joe Burrow, even with all the weapons on offense, if you don't have a defense that can complement that, it's no guarantee you're going to make the playoffs. That was evidenced last year. Some teams have been able to do it, but you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. The Bengals seem like they recognize that by bringing in Al Golden. Lou Anarumo is going to be regarded as one of the better defensive coordinators they've had in recent memory. However, there needed to be a change. There needed to be something to get this defense going, because it struggled mightily last year. We can go with that. Even with Trey Hendrickson, who was the sack leader last year. He gets all the attention for all the contract talks, but the reason for that is, yes, he was the bright spot on that defense. But even with that, the Bengals still missed the playoffs. The defense continued to struggle. It just could not close out games. But with all that said, there is a national analyst that is saying he is bullish on the Bengals bouncing back this year. And that's exactly, as a Bengals fan, what you want to hear. You don't want to see that kind of a defense out there going back into 2025. It was very tough to watch. So many times where they just needed that one play. They just needed that stop, and they couldn't get it. And yes, we can put this under the microscope. Again, one more game. If the Bengals could have won, they were in the playoffs. That's how close they were. That's how frustrating it was to see, just because of that. And there were other factors. We've talked about them at length. But if the Bengals can get this defense where it needs to be, we got a lot of excitement to look forward to. And that's something that he is brought out. He had a lot to say, and as a Bengals fan, I think you can agree with it. Here's what he had to say, though. Going on, it was Steve Palazzolo. He said, Hendrickson was so good last year on a defense that, remember, early in the year, I was looking up historical comps for games like, was this the worst pass rush game we've ever seen from a team? After watching the Bengals just try to put pressure on the quarterback, and they were in the bottom 3, bottom 5. They had so many games where they just got zero pressure. They should have, could have, would have, should have beat the Chiefs in week 2. There was a 4th and long defensive pass interference. Trey Hendrickson almost single-handedly had key sacks to keep them in that game, and that happened throughout the year. He had this knack not only for pressure, but to also finish the play, to get the sack like a TJ Watt always does in Pittsburgh. And that was with no pass rush on the other opposite side. Sam Hubbard, now retired, was the top edge rusher on the other side. He was getting zero pressure. He's retired now for a reason. Say what you will about that when he was going on about Sam Hubbard. I think he did a lot, but yes, Sam Hubbard wasn't himself last year. I think we can agree with that. So I agree with this. You're talking Trey Hendrickson was the bright spot, but even with him having that just ability, as he said, to get to the quarterback, it wasn't enough. So that's why we look at this season. That's why we're anxious to see, what did the Bengals do to improve, to get to where this defense is going to get better, starting with that defensive line. Well, first and foremost, you got to get Trey Hendrickson signed. I mean, they are not going to go anywhere. However you feel about it, I've seen the comments of He's not worth it. He should not be paid that much. He shouldn't sit out. I hear you. I don't think it's right that he is taking a stand, making himself be that distraction. He said as much. I don't want to be a distraction. Unfortunately, it is. It's going to be a distraction when you're sitting out. And especially earlier in the year when he met with the media, really aired out his frustration. That's a distraction. That's what's going to happen. So first and foremost, this goes without saying. We've talked about it. Get Trey Hendrickson in. Get him on the field. Get those reps so that he's not just in the house. He's not just in camp showing guys. He needs to actually be getting those reps with them. I'm all for these younger guys. You've got Myles Murphy that's getting a lot of attention. Joseph Ossai, those could possibly be your starters. Even Shamar Stewart, even though he is a rookie, he has been showing some flashes. But Hendrickson needs to get on the field. He needs to be there. So that's your first priority when it comes to that. And then the second is, yes, you got to have a guy that's going to step up and compliment him. I agree completely with what he's saying, is that if they could have had that one guy, just somebody else, because other than Hendrickson, there was no pressure. You know, we talk about sacks all day. They need to just be disruptive. Get in the other quarterback's head, because if not, the quarterback's going to get his confidence up. He's going to feel like he can just sit back there and pick apart whatever defensive scheme is thrown at him. He'll eventually catch on if you give him enough time. That's anybody. So that is going to be the biggest thing they need to fix going into this year. Certainly. I mean, that's just goes without saying. This defense has a lot of promise, but it needs to start up front. He went on to go on further, though. He talked at length about this Bengals defense, and I love it. I love hearing these comments. But he said, I think they're in creep back towards average territory. If they can do that, and it's Hendrickson getting back into camp, some kind of help on the other side, whether it's rookie Shamar Stewart, Myles Murphy taking a step a year in year 3, which is possible that he could be a reasonable pass rusher. He dealt with injuries early last season and never really got going. Joseph Ossai looks like a good rotational edge. That's really what he's been. But they need somebody to step up, or the conglomerate of those three to step up. So there you go. Exactly. Somebody has got to step up. You got Myles Murphy. He was a first rounder from a few years ago. He could be that guy. You got Joseph Ossai, who's also been flashing, but he's been more of that rotational piece. And then you got Shamar Stewart. You got that guy that's a rookie. He's still got a lot to learn. But regardless, somebody has got to step up. He feels that they can do it. I think they can too. I think out of all those guys, you've got options. And he brought out the injuries. Yes, Myles Murphy has had his injuries. If he can stay healthy, if they can just come out the gate and get solid pressure, consistent pressure from those guys, that's where you're going to see maybe them making some noise here. That's what's got me excited, is what can the Bengals do if they stay healthy? That's a big question mark, right? Every team's going to be dealing with injuries. It goes without saying. In a perfect world, you want no injuries. And if that's the case, then I'm going to say it. They'll have a really good defense. I think that's one thing that got overlooked last year. It was really easy to point the finger and say, look at the stats, look how bad they are doing. But they dealt with their fair share of injuries. I mean, Logan Wilson is kind of that commander, kind of that guy in the middle. He was injured. We talked about at length, Dax Hill was their best corner and only played a few games. What would have happened if those guys wouldn't have got injured? There's a lot of what ifs with that, but still, it's about the depth. Are they going to be able to have next man up mentality? Next guy step up. That's really, in a nutshell, all of it. Everybody, if you're on this team, needs to step up. But he goes on further to kind of summarize. This is something to really be excited about when you talk about his comments. He says, Al Golden with the returning corners, DJ Turner coming off of injury, Dax Hill coming off of injury. That's the other part of this Bengals defense. They were hurt at corner, just as DJ Turner in his second year last year heading into year 3. Just as he was getting going, he gets hurt. Dax Hill just converted to corner. He gets hurt. They have the ingredients, I think, to get much better defensively. There you go. All those injuries, all of those scenarios, he is bullish on Al Golden. I have to agree with that. I think Al Golden was a great choice in bringing him in. Another thing about the defense was with Lou Anarumo's schemes and a young team, it just seemed like they were kind of lost at times. So with that in mind, when you have a guy that works well with younger guys, he went to Notre Dame, had the #1 defense in college. You bring him in with younger guys, that just sounds like a home run to me. I'm really excited to see what is going to happen tonight. Again, preseason against the Eagles is tonight. So we're going to see these guys in action. Hopefully, they are going to be able to kind of show that glimpse. I don't want them to be all the starters out there. Again, we just talked about injuries. that would definitely the thing that we all hold our breath about, but it'll be still exciting to see. Talk about Dax Hill. Zach Taylor did say he will not be playing. I understand that. And again, if he's coming back from that injury, he seems like he's almost there, but don't risk it. I'm all for that. But yeah, just keep an eye on that. Some people that will not be playing in the preseason game. Zach Taylor mentioned him. Cam Taylor-Britt has been day-to-day. He went ahead and said they're not going to be starting him. BJ Hill is someone I would keep an eye on. He's been slowly coming back from that injury. He had some kind of boot on his foot at the beginning of camp. So I would be a little bit cautious with him, just wondering what's going on there because, again, this is the first preseason game, nothing to freak out about. But I am curious to see as we go into the coming weeks how he's going to be feeling. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson is not going to be on the field with his contract situation. He also said Cedric Johnson and Marco Wilson, who is a cornerback, will not be playing tonight. But everybody else is going to be out there. So it's going to be interesting. What is this Bengals team going to look like, especially with Shamar Stewart? That's the player I would say keep an eye on because he has been disruptive so far in training camp. He's been swatting down passes. That's what I would say take a look at. Don't look at the sacks. Don't look at those numbers. Look at, is this guy going to be disruptive? He is called the Menace. Let's see if you can live up to that name. But we want to hear from you guys. Are you excited for preseason game 1? It is tonight. We want to hear from you guys. And what do you think about this defense? Do you think it's going to be an improvement over last year? We certainly hope so. But if we go by the words of the analysts there, we can have a lot of confidence, a lot of breakdown of the Bengals staying healthy. But we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear what your thoughts are. And again, if you have not already, be sure you smash that subscribe so you'll be all up to date with everything Bengals and Bengals Digest. So that's going to do it for now, guys. As we say, Hoo Day.